What's going on, everyone? We hope you are ready for an action-packed week in the markets because there is a lot going on right now. The stock market had a pretty decent day as 75% of the S&P 500 closed up in the green today, but there were a few major things that you definitely have to know about, especially related to quantum stocks, the new chip restrictions that were just put into place, the craziness with Trump stock, as well as a handful of other things that are certainly shaking the markets quite a bit. In today's video, we're going to cover everything you have to know and more, and some great setups to keep on your radar. But besides that, Tom, let's not waste any time and let's get right to it.
Yeah, we actually saw the market try to mount a comeback today. That we had a pretty bad gap down with the SPY this morning, but considering where it ended up, it's actually not too bad there. But I will say the quantum stocks definitely took a big hit. So I first want to go to QUBT, IONQ, one of the more popular ones recently, RGTI, down 32% today. Like, these are no jokes on these moves here. And it looks like Mark Zuckerberg is joining NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang in saying that these quantum stocks and just quantum technology in general is going to take a while to be in place. Now, there's some pretty good quotes in the article here, if you guys want to check them out, by Zuckerberg, where he's pretty much saying that, hey, you know, it's a ways off from being a very useful paradigm, and also noting that, you know, it's like a decade plus out is what a lot of people are thinking. So this was said on Joe Rogan's podcast on Friday, where Zuckerberg actually talked about a lot of interesting stuff, and I'm sure you guys would be interested to see that too. But nonetheless, Mike, at the end of the day, these quantum stocks are falling from the heavens here. You know, RGTI, we talked about this in yesterday's video, has already been on a pretty bad downtrend. And with that move today, it's just adding more fuel to the fire, and the snowball is definitely building.
No doubt about that, and quantum stocks were something that we definitely touched on in a bearish way last week, so I know a lot of people are definitely liking this sell-off when it comes to quantum stocks in general right now. Like, yes, they've had a ton of euphoria in the short term, but over these past couple of weeks, not only has there been negative sentiment, but the price action has just been brutal, so keep them close on watch. They still do have some potential for like some short-term plays, but they're getting to that point where they're still like too overvalued in the broader sense, in my opinion, to justify like buying the dip to hold for a longer time frame. But if these stocks do start to show like a switch of momentum, then there can be scalp opportunities in both directions. But, you know, they move quite a bit, and they're definitely worth keeping on the radar for, you know, ultra short-term momentum trend following strategies.
Yeah, and I know that like these stocks have been pretty wild lately, and I'm sure a lot of traders are probably upset that they're starting to drop, but don't be upset, just adapt to the market, and at least for scalping opportunities, there's some really good ones here, and I'm sure that on these dips, a lot of people will be loving some of the discounts that might be coming soon for the longer run as well, but like people are saying, just keep in mind, these could be years away. I did want to take a look at Meta stock today, Mike, just because Zuckerberg was, you know, in the news so much from Friday and over the weekend, and it ended up down at 1.22%. But, you know, we always talk about Zuckerberg and Jensen Huang right now and all these chip stocks, right? NVIDIA actually has been falling a lot, and they ended up down at 1.97% today. And it looks like the Biden administration is actually pushing some new export restrictions onto NVIDIA. They've been talking about doing this, and now they're finally rolling them out here.
Exactly. So this is a lot bigger than most people think. And basically what's happening here is the US government is clamping down big time. So basically they've been pretty protective over like who can access like the good AI chips. And they've been really trying to stop China from getting their hands on them. And China is basically figuring out ways to get the AI chips that they want anyways. And the US isn't too happy with that. So they're basically putting in these new restrictions where only about 20 like close US allies will be able to get like the good chips without restrictions, where basically everyone else will have some hoops they have to jump through. And this is definitely a big move in multiple different senses. And one thing that I thought was super interesting that came along with this news is that Nvidia was not happy about it at all. And I guess that shouldn't be a giant surprise. And we could see that Nvidia and especially their CEO basically said that Biden's administration's rigged and misguided new AI chip export restrictions are something that they're certainly not happy about. And they had a handful of things to say that went along with this, but Nvidia is not a fan of this news, and I think their stock demonstrates that in a pretty decent way.
Yeah, definitely. There was so much said today and a lot of negatives towards the Biden administration from Nvidia. You know, whether you like that or hate that, either way, it's some restrictions that definitely hurt their business. And you could tell that even whenever the SPY made a recovery today and ended up coming all the way back into the green, as did many stocks out there. You know, we go to the heat map, a lot of the S&P 500 was green, 75%, like we said, but a lot of these bigger tech stocks were down as these restrictions are definitely negative, and it just puts a negative, I guess, connotation to all chip stocks. You know, even like Micron was down like 4% today, just kind of falling down, you know, I would say like with the overall news. But at the end of the day, these chip stocks are definitely going to be big. Keep watching them in the short term for more potential price action. And I will say, look at it in both directions. Be adaptable with these because they did seem to recover up pretty well at the end of the day today. So, like if we wake up tomorrow and this type of momentum's continuing, of course, don't start shorting these right away.
Yep, but either way, this is definitely some pretty big news to keep on the radar, not even just for the short term with Nvidia, but also with how Trump, treats like this sort of stuff during his administration. So keep a close eye on Nvidia and just other chip stocks in general over the next couple of weeks and months, because this news is important and it does have bigger effects than most people think. In other news, there was a lot of craziness going on with Donald Trump stock, ticker symbol DJT, with Truth Social. Tom, this one popped up by over 20% today. Honestly, off of no news.
Yeah, I know, right? But hey, Trump's inauguration is coming up this Monday, or I should say next Monday, January 20th, and the market will actually be closed that day too. But a lot of people have been attributing a lot of the good movement lately between Tesla and DJT, obviously to the inauguration coming up, and DJT was no slouch today, 21.5%. And if we go to the daily chart with DJT, it had actually been stuck in like a few week downtrend here where it had a good high right around $38 to $40, and with that good push today we got through that psychological level and a recent high. So DJT has to be on watch, and I really like this recent high to watch for over the next couple of days, right around the $55 mark. That'll be very key in my book.
Yeah, so DJT is one of those stocks where it's super crazy, and as you might guess with it being connected to Truth Social, it definitely is like a high risk, high reward type play. When it has momentum, it has the power to truly run, as we've seen leading up to the elections, but it's something that you have to trade with caution. What's nice is that when it does move, it could have some massive moves, which is great, but you just can't get caught holding the bag because people have paid quite a big price for doing that in the past. So either way, keep this one on watch for a potential like high risk, high reward play. But in other news, there's also a lot of attention going on with this US Steel deal. So Tom, what's going on here?
Yeah, this is huge here. So US Steel, which is ticker symbol X, has been trying to get acquired for a long time now, and Nippon Steel is trying to do a deal with them, and they're essentially trying to buy them out for like $55 a share, and that's a pretty big price, right? Especially considering X is like in the mid-30s right now, and everybody's trying to get this deal stricken down. The Biden administration just issued a block on the deal, so it looks like they're blocking it with nipping. But today, a couple more companies are going to partner together and actually go in on a potential deal here with X. And now this deal is not as good. It's going to be in the high 30s, they're saying. But CLF and NUE, so Cleveland Cliffs and Nucor, are going to be partnering on this. And it sounds like a pretty good thing, Mike. Two, I guess, more U.S.-backed companies, rather than a Japanese steel company buying out X, and that's really the big problem here. They don't want a foreign company to buy out, obviously, United States Steel, which has had a lot of history and, of course, is a big deal within the United States. So I thought it was interesting, Mike, and CLF and NUE are both moving from this, but what a headline today. Finally, some things might be getting done, but they still have to iron everything out here.
Yeah, so of course this news isn't as crazy and exciting as quantum stocks falling by 30% in a day or chips being limited or anything like that, but this is important and it is worth paying attention to. Like Tom said, we have three pretty big and strong moving stocks at play here. Ticker symbol NUE and CLF are looking to partner together to potentially buy ticker symbol X because, neither the Biden administration or the Trump administration are too happy to let a Japanese company buy United States Steel. So either way, keep these three tickers on the radar. They should offer some pretty good trend following opportunities, but understand that all three of these stocks will move quite a bit as new news releases that is related to the situation. So keep it on the radar. It is something to pay attention to. But we also have a pretty exciting week in terms of earnings, Tom, as we have the big banks kicking off earnings season.
That's going to be huge on Wednesday in pre-market. JP Morgan, Citigroup, Wells Fargo. It's hard to beat those names. BlackRock even mixed in there. And then Thursday, a chip stock, Taiwan Semiconductors. That'll be really interesting Thursday morning. United Health, and then even more banks. Goldman, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, U.S. Bancorp. So plenty of big banks there to end the week, Mike. And even Friday, SLB, Regions, obviously not as big as like JP Morgan and Goldman and stuff, but pretty dang big there. And even the economic side of things, there's quite a bit going on this week with PPI data tomorrow, 1 hour before the market opens, and then inflation data on Wednesday as well.
And this is going to be more important than most people realize, especially in these market conditions, because when you have PPI data and CPI data set to release not only this week and back to back, but also, at this current time, it's very important because everyone has been freaking out and talking about yields lately. If you look at the U.S. 10-year Treasury yield, we can see it's getting closer and closer and closer to that 5% mark, which has multiple different things attached to it. Not only is the 5% mark the previous resistance or highest high point from the previous uptrend from October of 2023, but it is also a massive psychological level. And for those of you who don't know, the US 10-year Treasury yield is arguably one of the most important, things to pay attention to in stock markets and just in general, because it is like the go-to interest rate that everyone looks at. This has a huge influence on mortgages and more things than most people even realize. When you see interest rates not only rising, but rising in a way that is much quicker than everyone expected it to, especially at a time when the Federal Reserve has been, keeping rates the same or lowering them, that is a big sign, and it's not good for stocks. And that is a main reason that we've seen a decent amount of profit taking in the market overall right now. So basically, on Wednesday, we have some crucially important data that will release 1 hour before open that will give everyone a lot more information as to how hot inflation really is. And if this data comes in hotter than expected, it will have a big impact on rates in general. So long story short, Wednesday, 1 hour before open, I would say is going to be the most important event to start 2025 off.
Yeah, definitely. I would say so, especially considering I would say, Mike, if the FOMC meeting from last was in 2025, I'd have to beg to differ. But I guess Powell, he squeaked out. He got lucky this time. But yeah, definitely be ready 1 hour before the market opens Wednesday. Definitely going to be big with all the key inflation data. And Mike, I guess while we're talking about the overall market here, we might as well get into some of the SPY levels and analysis for tomorrow. And right now, SPY actually had a pretty good move today. We continued the downtrend and it gapped down in a nice way, but at the end of the day, the SPY ended up roaring back and even closing up in the green a little bit, as 75%, as we saw on the heat map earlier, was up in the green. And it wasn't mainly the big tech stocks. You can see all of those are red. We had banks, oil stocks really led the way today. Healthcare stocks, we saw a lot of good movement there. So, it was kind of the more boring stocks today, honestly, which carried the SPY. But for tomorrow, we've been seeing the SPY post lower highs pretty constantly here over the past few trading days and even over the past couple of, I would say, few weeks, right? And today, with that drop, we actually broke the recent low at 578 to 580, but that's still going to be on watch as a good support for tomorrow. We re-broke back above it, so now we have to still use it as support for tomorrow. I'm using good resistance around 582.50, 585, and 590. And something that I'm really worried about here, Mike, as far as the SPY price action, which I think is very important, is I would not be surprised if the SPY just chopped all around into this inflation report. I think that the market is probably going to get pretty volatile whenever that report comes out, and I would guess that there's going to be a lot of things hinging on this, so it's going to be a big event, and I just would not be surprised to see some chop there.
Yeah, and even if SPY does chop for let's say the next couple of days, that doesn't mean that there won't be opportunity, because there's a whole bunch of different areas of the market right now that are still moving in super strong ways. Of course, quantum today got obliterated, but even stocks like DJT had phenomenal days as it popped up by, let's say, over 20%, and there are a handful of other stocks out there doing the same thing, and just varying directions and intensities. So keep that in mind. You don't have to trade SPY. It's really about focusing where the money is and just focusing on that. You don't really have to try and catch everything. But yeah, I think that's very interesting. And Wednesday will definitely have huge implications for the market in the short term. So I definitely look forward to the rest of this week. But besides that, Tom, we are all set for some setups and predictions. And a stock that is definitely on my radar right now is ticker symbol AAL. So this is American Airlines, and airline stocks have been crushing it, honestly, for most of 2023. AAL is now at the point where it has some pretty heavy resistance around $18 a share, $18.50, $18.80, and $19, and it's already starting to pull back, and it has some close support right around $16.30, 16, and then $15.50. The way I look at AAL right now is that it has had such a great 2023, but it is now to the point where it is overextended, and I think the recent price action says a lot than most people think. We could see that it tried very hard on Friday to continue its explosive upwards trend, but today it got rejected down in a major way, and this sort of price action is, not something to ignore. Not only did it reject, but it actually got lower than its lowest point from Friday. And again, it's just pretty overextended in general. So basically, I am bearish on AAL. This is not a trade just for tomorrow, but one that could last for, 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting with how much AAL has popped up in the short term. I would say it's definitely getting overextended, and those resistances that you were listing out there were definitely some major ones on the daily chart. That's for sure. And these resistances go back multiple years even as well. So pretty big channel that AAL has been kind of stuck in. With my next setup, I'm looking at Apple, and I'm looking at it to the upside here, actually. This is going to be a bit of a weirder setup. In the short term, I love the way Apple's dropping, and overall, I think it's actually bearish here in the short term. But in the very, very like short-term nitty-gritty things here, I'm looking at the overall market possibly chopping. And with that good momentum that we started to see with the overall market at the end of the day today, I just would not be surprised to see like 1 to 2 more good green days out of the market. And I'm just generally looking for Apple to really get back above recent resistance around 237. If I can see that really good resistance there, that breakout of 237, that's where I would want to see it up tomorrow. And we can see that 237 had a pretty big stack of sellers here on the Bookmap as well. This was definitely a bigger area on Apple, and also 230 acted as a major support today, where there was a lot of buyers early on and then even more that came in towards the end of the day. So I am watching Apple back to the upside in the short term, but just realize like, hey, if we wake up tomorrow and the whole market's gapping down, then obviously we're not trading Apple up.
No doubt. And you beat me to it with Bookmap with that like $230 area, because as you showed with Bookmap, there's a lot of buying interest there. And that is also a psychological level and a key support level from today's price action. So I definitely think that is very important. And Apple stock is down around 11.5% from recent highs. So that is a fair amount for a company like Apple. So I will definitely keep this one on the radar as well. But another stock that I'm watching pretty closely is WBA, and it is to the upside. I know we talked about this one a little bit in yesterday's video, and it had a nice move up today, but nothing like too insane. Basically, WBA has a lot of strong short-term momentum from its recent earnings report, where major resistance is right around $12 and $12.30, that area, with secondary resistance at $12.65 and $13. It has close support right around like a 1065 and 11, and then even 1125 as well. So there are a handful of important levels for this stock. I definitely still have a bullish bias on it in the short term, but I would like to see it hold this recent support, with the first and most important level being 1125. Ticker symbol CVS is also showing some bullish price action, and it kind of moves hand in hand with WBA, but both of these stocks have been beaten down for so long, and they are just now finally starting to see their supply and demand dynamic shift in a favorable way. So they're definitely on my radar in a short-term bullish sense, where the more pressure they put on the recent highs, the better the setups become.
Yeah, I really noticed like in the short term, both of these stocks, WBA and CVS, have both been popping off, and I'll definitely keep them on the radar for tomorrow. I couldn't believe CVS, how it was popping up on my scanners this morning. I was like, wow, that is really starting to get up there. But with my next setup, I'm looking at defense stocks in general here. So, hey, I guess pick your favorite, right? Let me know in the comments which ones you like, but I'm looking at Lockheed Martin, LMT, Northrop, which is NOC, and then Raytheon, which is RTX. Those are the main three that I'm going to be watching here. I love the dips on these stocks in the short term. Like RTX has been starting to dip down, and as of today, there was a lot of good bullish price action back up out of these. And with the overall market getting a little bit slow and more choppy and shaky, these honestly move in. They have more of a mind of their own, right? Now they are pretty positively correlated to the SPY, not as much as like some tech stocks might be, but at the end of the day, they're defense stocks. They're going to move with a bit more of a mind of their own. But I am watching these back up off of these dips. It might not be something that necessarily like plays out tomorrow, but I will be watching it for the next like week to 2 weeks with these stocks for good bullish intraday scalping opportunities on this overall daily setup.
And another thing to keep in mind is that as we are starting to see more excitement in the market with the Trump inauguration, as seen by looking at ticker symbol DJT, there could also be some, bullish flows that flow into some of these defense stocks depending on Trump's expected actions. So that's just another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely. That could be something that would add in as well. And, I know that there's been a lot of talks of potential action, like the Gulf of America, right, or the Panama Canal. There's been some wild stuff said lately.
Yeah, especially with Iran and a lot of other things. So it definitely will be an interesting 2025. But besides that, Tom, it is now about that time for today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have Tesla to the upside.
Tesla at the end of the day today really surprised me. That was one good push, and they're right around a key 410 resistance. So if they're able to break above $410, watch Tesla back to the upside.
All right, with the next one, we have OXY also to the upside.
Yeah, oil did very well today and has been doing well in the short term. If OXY can break above intraday resistance right around 52.80, keep watching them up.
All right, and then with the last one, we have AI to the downside.
Yeah, in the short term, a lot of these growth stocks have really been falling off. AI is one of them, down 4.5%, and there's a good double bottom at the low of day today to watch for tomorrow, right around $30.40. So if we break under there, watch AI to the downside.
Alrighty, sounds good there. So we have these three stocks on watch for potential momentum plays tomorrow. Basically, these setups are only setups if they break through the levels listed with strong, consistent momentum. These stocks are volatile, so as always, you have to have stop losses and you have to protect yourself. Trading without a stop loss is probably the worst thing you could do. Manage your risk and be happy to adjust and flow with the trend changes as they happen. But besides that, we are all clear for today's $840,000 big money trade. And we are looking at ticker symbol ACI. So this one is very interesting, where $840,000 were put into the 20 strike call options that expire on July 18th of 2025. For my advanced traders out there, this is technically a call debit spread where they also shorted the 22 strike calls. But basically, this is a bullish trade where the big money wants ticker symbol ACI to go up. Looking at ACI, it has definitely had a pretty eventful past couple of years, as there was a potential merger with Kroger. That did not end up going through, but ticker symbol ACI is starting off this recent post-earnings movement in a pretty strong way. We could see that the stock got bid up strongly right from open today, and these call options were filled around 21 minutes after the market opened, which definitely shows that there was serious demand for the stock to start out the week. Either way, looking at ticker symbol ACI, the stock has been holding its ground pretty well in the short term, and it's definitely showing some signs of increasing bullish momentum, so I'm pretty excited to see how this one ends up doing.
Yeah, that's one great move today, 3.56%. It has negative correlation to the SPY as well, given the sector that it's in, kind of, more that grocery store, that the vibe there with Kroger and everybody else. But it's weird, how much it's really surprised me, Mike, like how much companies that deal with like supermarkets and stuff have that strong negative correlation. You can even look at like Kraft, like I said, Kroger. Lots of these stocks aren't really all that correlated to the S&P. But with ACI, this is a big move in the short term, and I think that there's been a bit of a shift going on with this stock. This stock was in a pretty big downtrend, and we actually saw some pretty insane price action here on the daily chart with some insane touches and some big wicks around the beginning of December. So that's pretty big to see, and I think there's some bigger players looking at this one on the bottom, but it's starting to come up very, very well. And I would say the only thing I am a little worried about is there is major resistance pretty close to like this $21 mark, where there was a few touches in the past, we'll say.
All right, sounds good. So either way, keep ticker symbol ACI close on watch going forward. These options do have a bit of time to them. It's a pretty decently sized trade, and while this stock isn't like NVIDIA or RGTI or anything like that, it does still have some pretty good options movement. So keep it close on watch. But before we continue on, we want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Cart in the Stocked Up Discord. They had a great post today with an IBIT call trade where they had a nice scoop towards the bottom, which was nice to see. So huge shout out to you, Cart. Keep up the great work going forward, and hopefully we see many more screenshots like this one from you in the future. But if you guys are new to the Stocked Up YouTube channel, consider obliterating that subscribe button to get our videos recommended to you more often. It takes us hours to make these videos, and we cover the most important news, information, chart setups, big money plays, earnings, economic events, and everything you have to know about the market in around 20 to 25 minutes or less. If you subscribe, you'll get our videos recommended to you more often, but we do have a lot on the calendar this week. Not only in terms of important economic data, but also just in general, there is a lot going on right now, especially in the market and even a lot of individual stocks. So it should be a pretty exciting week. Earnings season is ramping back up again, so we're set for a very exciting start to 2025. And in just a week from now, we have the inauguration as well, so it should be exciting. Thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.